Hi, I'm Laura McMahon Higgins, Managing Partner of Questamon Legal. Welcome to our new series, Ask Laura, where I answer your burning construction contract law questions.
So let's jump in and have a look at today's question. What happens when the contract specification conflicts with Australian standards?
Wow, that is a great question. In order to answer that question, let me tell you a story. I had a situation where a client of mine was a mechanical contractor constructing a prison. Now, prisons are a little bit different from other buildings when it comes to the way we design them for fire. So in most normal buildings, if there's a fire, we evacuate everyone and we get them to stand in the car park. But there are a couple of buildings where that is simply not going to work. Hospitals with ICUs and prisons being two really good examples. If there's a fire, we can't just ask the prisoners to stand in the car park until we sort it out. The building needs to be capable of withstanding that fire for a much greater amount of time. So when we have a look at the requirements around fire, in a general building, what's required in order to comply with Australian standards is that your cabling does not need to be fire rated, providing it's within a fire rated compartment. The idea behind that is that the fire rated compartment keeps the fire away from the cabling for long enough to evacuate the building. And when the fire breaches that compartment, it doesn't matter if those cables disintegrate and the mechanical fans stop working because there's no one left in the building. But when we have a building that we do need to operate for a greater amount of time, often the specification when that building is designed will require the cabling within the fire-rated compartment to also be fire-rated. Think of it like a double layer of protection. Now, in the project my client was undertaking, we had a specification that had that additional requirement. So the Australian standard says cabling does not need to be fire-rated within a fire-rated compartment, but our specification in this project had a more onerous obligation. Even within a fire-rated compartment, the cabling must be fire-rated. So in the case of my client, we had to ensure that the cabling within the fire-rated compartment was fire-rated cable. If, though, it went the other way around, and the specification had been written by an inexperienced designer, and it failed to meet the requirements required by the Australian standards, then in that case, you would still need to comply with the Australian standards, notwithstanding the fact that they are over and above what's required in the spec. To summarise that quickly, in the event that the specification is more onerous than the Australian standards, you must comply with the spec. But in the event that the Australian standards are more onerous than the specification, you will have an obligation to comply with the Australian standards. I hope you found that helpful. If you're interested in content like this, please follow along and tune in for another episode of Ask Laura.
Have a question? Drop me an email at laura@questamon.com.au and your topic could be on a future instalment of Ask Laura.